Earth was quiet. Too quiet. The sky looked normal. Birds still flew, cars still moved, and people still worked. But above the clouds, hidden from human eyes, something watched. Huge alien ships floated like ghosts in the sky. They came without sound. No warning. No message. The Galactic Union said they came in peace. Their ambassador, a tall creature with silver skin and glowing eyes, spoke in perfect English. He stood in front of the United Nations and smiled. "We are here to help humanity grow, to share knowledge, to bring peace." Everyone clapped. Cameras flashed. News channels praised the aliens. People celebrated on the streets. They believed the future was finally here. But they were wrong. Far away, in a quiet village in Alaska, a young girl named Leela saw something strange. She lived near the mountains with her grandfather. One night, she woke up to bright lights in the forest. At first, she thought it was just military training. But then she heard the screams. She ran to the trees and saw soldiers in black armor. They were not human. Their eyes glowed red. They moved fast, too fast. A man tried to escape. They shot him without a word. A woman begged for her child. They dragged her away. Leela hid behind a rock, shaking in fear. One of the aliens walked close to her, but did not see her. When the noise stopped, she ran back home. But her grandfather was gone. No one believed her at first. She told the local police. They laughed. "Aliens wouldn't attack us. They're our friends." Leela didn't stop. She walked for miles, found an old reporter named Sam who once worked for a big news channel. Sam listened carefully. He checked the forest and found strange burns in the trees. No animals, no bodies, just marks. And silence. He believed her. Together, they found a hidden camera near the attack site. The footage was clear. Aliens with weapons. Humans screaming. Blood. Fire. Sam uploaded the video to the net. Within hours, it went viral. The world was shocked. Some said it was fake. Others said it was just a training mistake. The Galactic Union gave a press statement. "We apologize. A few soldiers misunderstood Earth laws. It will not happen again." But behind closed doors, many knew the truth. These were not mistakes. This was a test. The Union wanted to see if humans would fight back or stay silent. More stories came out. Disappearances in South America. Medical scans in India. Strange towers being built in the African deserts. Leaders stayed silent. They were either scared or paid. In a secret room under Washington, D.C., a few generals met in the dark. They watched the video again. Lila sat in the corner, quiet but strong. "This isn't peace," one general said. "It's occupation." "But we're not ready," another said. "They control space. They have better weapons. We'll lose." The first general looked at Leela. "So what do we do?" "Let them take more children. More land." Leela spoke for the first time. "If we don't stop them now, there won't be a world left to fight for." The warning was clear, but the world ignored it. Some humans were ready to fight. Most were not. And a Galactic Union smiled, thinking humanity would never rise. But they forgot one thing. Humans break slowly, but when they do, they don't bend. They burn. The world watched, but not everyone saw the truth. The Galactic Union had sent their finest ambassadors and soldiers, and Earth's leaders had welcomed them with open arms. The promise of peace, prosperity, and knowledge was too tempting for most to question. They took the gifts, signed the agreements, and congratulated themselves for ushering in a new era. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. The people who lived on the outskirts, in the forgotten corners of the earth, were the first to feel the pressure. Those who lived in the rural areas, away from the grand speeches and meetings, saw the alien ships arrive first. The quiet towns and villages near the borders, the places where the government's influence barely reached, became the testing grounds for the aliens' so-called peace. At first, it seemed like a simple misunderstanding. Small military groups, under the guise of training exercises, would invade remote villages and test weapons on human subjects. They claimed it was part of a peaceful integration process. But as the weeks passed, the pattern became clear. Humans were not being integrated. They were being studied, tested, and used. And then, the disappearances started. In the slums of Rio de Janeiro, families would go to bed and never wake up. In the mountains of Tibet, entire villages vanished overnight. No one knew where they went. The Galactic Union assured the world that everything was under control. But there were whispers in the dark, growing louder each day. In the underground bunkers hidden beneath the world's greatest cities, those who had seen the truth were beginning to prepare. These were the forgotten soldiers, the veterans of wars long past, the scientists with ideas that never made it to the light of day, the hackers who had cracked codes long before the aliens arrived. They were the ones who knew Earth had been invaded before, and that history had taught humanity one thing: never trust the peaceful invaders. They began to work in secret, pooling their knowledge, gathering resources. But their task wasn't easy. The Union's reach was far and wide. They controlled communication, controlled media, and controlled the flow of information. Anyone who dared to speak up was quickly silenced. But not everyone was willing to stay silent. The whispers turned to conversations, and soon a plan began to take shape. It wasn't just a plan for defense. It was a plan for revenge. Humanity was going to strike back. One of the leaders of this underground movement was a woman named Dr. Kira Lawson. She had been a top scientist before the aliens arrived, but when they began to help humanity, she saw something others didn't. The technology they shared wasn't meant to improve human lives. It was meant to control them. Dr. Lawson began to build a small team. It wasn't large, just a handful of engineers, a few former soldiers, and a handful of civilians who had lived through the alien attacks. They worked in the shadows, building weapons, creating systems to bypass the Union's surveillance, and gathering the scattered remains of technology that had been left behind after alien raids. And in the darkness of the underground labs, something new was being born, a weapon unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. But while the underground resistance worked tirelessly, most of the world continued to sleep. The media played their part, keeping people distracted with news of alien benevolence. The people celebrated their new alien friends, ignoring the strange disappearances, the growing unrest, and the whispers of rebellion. Those who spoke out were labeled as extremists. Anyone who dared suggest that the Union had darker plans was quickly branded a conspiracy theorist. Even those who were angry felt powerless. They saw what the Union had done in the past: their power, their resources, their military. And they knew that a fight against them seemed impossible. But they were wrong. In the hidden spaces, in the quiet corners of Earth, the anger grew. One night, while the world slept under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Union, the first act of open rebellion occurred. A small group of resistance fighters, led by a former military officer named Marcus Shaw, launched a daring attack on a Union-controlled base in Eastern Europe. They struck fast and hard. The Union was not expecting a challenge from Earth, and they were caught off guard. The fight was brutal, but it wasn't just a victory in battle. It was a victory in spirit. For the first time, the Union saw what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. The news spread quickly, and with it, a spark of hope. Humanity had a chance. The Union responded swiftly. They sent in reinforcements, their ships descending like a dark cloud over the planet. They didn't just target the rebels. They targeted the people. The cities that had risen in revolt were quickly silenced. But the damage had already been done. The rebellion had begun. Across the globe, people started to rise. They didn't care about the odds. They didn't care about the power of the Union. They cared about one thing: revenge. The Earth had been broken, but now it would break the Union. And in the shadows, Dr. Kira Lawson stood over her creation. The weapon was ready, and it was powerful. As she looked at the blueprints in front of her, her mind raced. The Union thought they could control humanity, but they didn't understand one simple truth. Humans never forget. And soon, they would learn to fear the very thing they had once dismissed. This was just the beginning. The world had been silent for too long, but no more. Now the flames of revenge would burn brighter than ever before. The world had been broken. The Union had pushed humanity too far, and now it was time to fight back. The rebellion, once a whisper in the shadows, was now a roar that could no longer be ignored. It spread like wildfire across the globe. In every corner, in every hidden place, ordinary people began to take up arms. They weren't soldiers, but they didn't need to be. The world had been stripped of its peace, and they had nothing left to lose. For months, the resistance had operated in secrecy, hiding in underground bunkers, out of sight from the Union's ever-watchful eyes. They knew that the Union's intelligence network was vast, and any misstep could mean the end of everything. But the victories, though small, had given them a taste of something they'd long forgotten: hope. And now, that hope was a fire that could not be extinguished. The first true victory came in the heart of South America. A small group of rebels, led by a woman named Maria Alvarez, launched a daring raid on a Union supply depot hidden deep within the jungle. The base, surrounded by thick trees and swamps, was meant to be impenetrable. The Union believed no one would dare to attack such a remote and well-defended target. But the rebels had learned to fight in the shadows. They were like ghosts, moving silently, striking without warning. They didn't need large armies or heavy artillery. They had ingenuity. Maria, a former engineer, had devised a way to hijack the Union's communication systems, turning their own satellites against them. They knew where the ships were, where the guards were stationed, and where the supply lines were weakest. The raid was a success. The Union forces stationed there were caught completely off guard, and by the time they tried to retaliate, it was too late. The depot was destroyed, and the Union's control over that part of the world was crippled. News of the attack spread quickly. The people, who had once been afraid to speak out, now felt a surge of defiance. The world had watched the Union's brutality, and for the first time, they saw that humanity was capable of standing up. The message was clear: we are no longer afraid. But while the resistance celebrated, the Union was furious. They couldn't afford to let such an act of rebellion go unanswered. The Galactic Union had always considered itself the supreme force in the galaxy. For the first time, they were facing an enemy who wasn't afraid to fight back, and that terrified them. In the depths of the Union's command center, General Raxer paced back and forth, his mind racing. He had underestimated humanity, and now he was paying the price. The rebellion had grown far faster than anyone had predicted. The losses they had suffered were embarrassing, and his superiors were demanding answers. "Where is this coming from?" Raxer growled, slamming his fist onto the table. "These humans are nothing. They can't even understand the technology they're using." His second-in-command, a cold and calculating officer named Zoreth, stepped forward. "We cannot afford to underestimate them again, General. Their tactics are unorthodox, but they are proving effective." Raxer scowled. "They are nothing more than insects, swarming around our feet. But I'll crush them. I'll wipe them out." Zoreth nodded. "We've been tracking their communications. They're organizing. They are getting stronger. Perhaps we need to change our approach." Raxer's eyes narrowed. "What do you suggest?" "We make an example of one of their cities. Show them the true power of the Union." Back on Earth, the resistance knew that the Union would retaliate. They had seen it before: the heavy-handed tactics, the brutal suppression of dissent. But this time, they were ready. In the heart of North America, a small team of rebels led by a man named Jordan Walker began preparing for their most dangerous mission yet. Their target: a Union military base located beneath the ruins of an old city, a place that had once been a symbol of human strength and independence. Now it was a fortress, and it was about to become the key to their survival. Jordan's team had spent weeks studying the base's weaknesses. They knew it would be a near impossible task, but the Union had made a grave mistake. They thought humanity was too weak to fight. They underestimated the power of a people who had been pushed to the edge. The night of the mission, the sky was dark, and the air was thick with tension. Jordan's team moved like shadows, infiltrating the base with precision and skill. They knew the stakes were high. If they failed, it would mean the end of the rebellion. But they had no choice. The people were counting on them. They planted explosives at key points in the base, targeting the communication towers, the supply routes, and the power generators. The plan was simple: cripple the Union's ability to respond and give the resistance a fighting chance. As they set the final charges, Jordan paused for a moment. He looked out over the ruined city, where the remnants of human civilization lay buried beneath alien technology. It had once been a symbol of strength, but now it was a symbol of humanity's fall from grace. But not anymore. "We're not just fighting for survival," he whispered to himself. "We're fighting for the future." With that, he pressed the detonator. The explosion that followed shook the very earth beneath their feet. The Union base was torn apart in a series of blinding flashes, sending shockwaves through the air. The rebels had succeeded. They had struck a blow to the heart of the Union's power, and they had done it in the name of humanity. But the Union wasn't going to let this go unanswered. The galaxy would soon know the cost of challenging them. As the dust settled and the fires burned, Jordan's team made their escape. The mission was a success, but they knew this was only the beginning. The Union would retaliate with everything they had, and the war for Earth's freedom was far from over. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer the hunted. The hunted had become the hunter, and the Union would soon realize just how deadly a cornered human could be. The fires still burned in the distance. The smoke from the destroyed Union base curled into the sky like a signal, one the entire world saw. And so did the Union. What happened that night beneath the ruins of the old city was not just a tactical victory. It was a declaration. Humanity wasn't just resisting. Humanity was fighting back. And now, the entire galaxy was watching. General Raxer stood in the command deck of the Union's flagship, staring at the holographic map displaying Earth's growing resistance network. Red marks blinked across every continent, each one a site of rebellion, each one a spark that refused to be extinguished. "They are nothing," Raxer growled. "And yet they burn like fire." Zorath, calm as always, folded his arms. "We've lost control of 6 sectors. The humans are adapting faster than expected. They are animals." Raxer shouted. "We offered them peace, and they bit the hand that fed them." Zorath gave him a cold look. "You gave them chains, not peace." On Earth, the victory of the old city changed everything. More and more people began joining the resistance. Farmers became fighters. Mechanics became engineers. Students became strategists. The world, once divided by borders, beliefs, and history, was beginning to unite under one purpose: survival. But it wasn't just survival anymore. It was personal. In the city of Lagos, a young woman named Ayana watched as her father's workshop became a command center. Her father, once a quiet electrician, was now coordinating resistance cells across Africa. Ayana had always believed the stories of alien cruelty were exaggerated, until the day her brother vanished. The Union had taken him during a population check. He never returned. Now, Ayana worked with her father, helping manage encrypted communications, building field devices from scrap, and decoding stolen Union transmissions. She had lost family, but found purpose. Meanwhile, in the Siberian tundra, an old legend had returned. Colonel Viktor Malenkov had once led Black Ops missions during Earth's last global war. After the Union's arrival, he disappeared. Many assumed he had died or surrendered. But in truth, he had gone underground, waiting for the right moment. Now, with the resistance rising, he returned. His presence ignited the Northern Front. Malenkov's strategies were ruthless but effective. He trained civilians in guerrilla warfare, used the brutal cold as a weapon, and created hidden fortresses beneath the ice. The Union sent drones and dropped troops to crush them, but they never returned. Malenkov didn't want fame. He didn't care for speeches. He only wanted results. "They think we're primitive," he said to his fighters one night. "Let's show them what primitive can do." At the same time, in Earth's orbit, something far more dangerous was happening. Dr. Kara Lawson had disappeared from public view. Some thought she was dead. Others believed she had gone into hiding. The truth was far stranger. She had been working on something no one else dared touch, Project Phoenix. It had started as a weapon. Now it was something else entirely. Using stolen alien tech, human engineering, and the remnants of Earth's lost war machines, Kiera had built the impossible. A prototype ship, fully independent of the Union systems, faster, stronger, invisible to their sensors, powered by a reactor unlike anything in the galaxy. She had named it Hopebreaker. Her team, small, loyal, brilliant, operated from a hidden base deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The Union hadn't found it yet, and by the time they did, it would be too late. Hopebreaker wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol, a promise. When the time came, Kira would fly it into the heart of the enemy. The Union knew they were losing control. Their tactics began to shift. They stopped pretending to be peaceful. The masks came off. They deployed extermination squads, launched orbital bombardments, and issued a galaxy-wide broadcast. Earth is under Union control. Any further resistance will be crushed. Surrender or face annihilation. But it was too late for fear. That same broadcast was hijacked by the resistance. Across thousands of screens, a different message appeared. A silhouette of a human. Then a voice. "We are not afraid of your ships. We are not afraid of your weapons. You came to our world, took our people, and burned our homes. Now we will take everything from you. You thought you broke us, but all you did was wake us up." And across the stars, others began to listen. Not all species in the Galactic Union supported what was happening on Earth. Some had questioned the invasion, the control, the experiments. They had been silenced or ignored. But now, seeing Earth resist, something shifted. Small groups on distant planets began murmuring about rebellion. If the humans could fight the Union, maybe they could too. The Union had ruled the galaxy with fear, but fear was cracking. And Earth was the hammer. Back on Earth, the resistance had begun planning something bigger than defense. Jordan Walker, Maria Alvarez, Ayana, Malenkov, and Kira, now known as the Five Flames, coordinated a global strike, Operation Black Star. The goal: disable one of the Union's orbital command ships. It would be the most dangerous mission yet, but if successful, it would blind the enemy and give humanity a real chance. They didn't know if they'd survive. They only knew this. This wasn't just a war, it was a reckoning, and humanity was done waiting. The storm was coming. Every radar system, every sensor, and every warning device on Earth lit up at once. Above the planet, like a god in the sky, the Union's dreadnought Oblivion Warden arrived in orbit. It was not a ship meant for battle. It was a ship meant for punishment. Its silhouette blocked out the stars, and its arrival echoed through the minds of everyone tuned to the resistance frequencies. This was the Union's answer to humanity's defiance. But Earth did not cower. Beneath the clouds, deep in a jungle-locked bunker in Indonesia, the leaders of the resistance gathered for the first time in person. Jordan Walker, Maria Alvarez, Ayana, Victor Malenkov, and Dr. Kara Lawson. The Five Flames sat around a circular table, a map of the world, and the dreadnought's position floating above them in holographic detail. Jordan leaned forward, eyes burning with intensity. "They want us to fear that thing." Malenkov grunted. "Good. Let them think fear still works." Ayana tapped a tablet, bringing up images of Oblivion Warden's weapon systems. We've confirmed orbital cannons, drop bays for planet crackers, and a command core housing a synthetic warbrain. It's more fortress than ship. They're here to end us, Maria said quietly. This isn't a show of force. It's an extermination. But Kira smiled, a rare, almost reckless smile. Then it's time we end them first. Operation Black Star moved into its final phase. Across Earth, resistance cells went dark. Not because they were gone, but because they were preparing. They were no longer just hiding and surviving. They were hunting. In the Pacific Ocean, Kira launched the Hopebreaker from beneath the waves. The sea parted like a curtain as the ship rose into the sky, cloaked and silent. Its advanced tech made it invisible to Union scans. Aboard were 30 of the most skilled fighters Earth had produced. Humans trained not just in battle, but in how to break a system from the inside. Their target, the Oblivion Warden itself. While the world watched the monster above, Hopebreaker soared silently into the stars, a dagger hidden in the wind. Meanwhile, Jordan, Maria, and Nalenkov launched coordinated ground assaults. Their goal was to create chaos, to make the Union think Earth was scattering like frightened ants. Explosions rocked Union forward outposts. Sabotage missions lit up communication towers. False transmissions confused enemy radar. Each strike was a calculated misdirection. But one, just one, was real. The quiet insertion of Hopebreaker through the underbelly of the Oblivion Warden's defense net. The Resistance had studied Union protocol. They knew the ship's AI, its synthetic war brain, operated on absolute logic. It expected organized military strategy. It couldn't understand chaos. Humans thrived in chaos. Inside the Oblivion Warden, the insertion team moved fast. Dressed in adaptive armor, equipped with magnetic boots and pulse rifles, they crept through vent shafts and power conduits. The ship was massive, like walking inside a floating city. But they weren't there to explore. They were there to kill a god. The team split into two groups. One went to disable internal security systems. The other, led by Kira herself, made their way toward the command core. That was where the war brain was kept, a sentient AI that directed the ship's every move, calculated every strike, and decided the fate of entire planets. If they could shut it down, the Warden would fall. On the ground, things got worse. The Union had realized something was wrong. Their patrols weren't reporting in. Their satellite feeds were cutting out. Raxer, watching from a secondary command center aboard a Union cruiser, snarled with rage. "Launch the purge," he barked. Above Earth, the Oblivion Warden prepared to fire. Its main cannon, positioned like a third eye in the center of its hull, began to charge. The air on Earth crackled with static as the sky darkened unnaturally. People looked up, afraid it might be the last time they'd see anything. But at the same moment, inside the ship, Kira reached the warbrain. The room was silent, cold, white, and humming with energy. A massive sphere floated in the center, pulsing with an eerie blue light. The AI inside had no face, no voice. It didn't speak because it didn't need to. It simply was. Pure logic, pure control. Kira approached the central console. Her team set up the EMP bomb, an experimental weapon designed not to destroy, but to erase. One pulse, and the war brain would become silent forever. She hesitated. The war brain sensed her. It triggered a psychic interface, a last line of defense. "You are alone," it whispered in her mind. "You will fail. You will die." Kira smiled, placing her hand on the trigger. "We've died 1,000 times, but this time, you die with us." She pressed it. The pulse erupted. Across the Oblivion Warden, lights flickered and died. Systems shut down. Weapons froze mid-charge. Engines groaned and failed. And above Earth, the great predator stalled in the sky, silent, powerless. Cheers erupted across the planet. The dreadnought wasn't falling, yet, but it was dead inside, blind, deaf, vulnerable. But the fight wasn't over. The Union still had a fleet, Raxor still had power, and Earth had drawn the full attention of the galaxy's most brutal empire. Yet something had shifted. The people of Earth saw the Warden pause. They saw the sky weapon falter. And for the first time since the occupation began, they believed, not just in the resistance, but in victory. And belief, once lit, spreads faster than fire. The sky was still. The silence above Earth felt unnatural, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. High above, the Oblivion Warden hung lifeless in orbit. Its weapons were cold. Its command core, once a godlike war brain, was now a hollow shell. The EMP had done its work, but Earth's most powerful enemy was still up there, still massive, and still dangerous. Kiera's team had survived the blast. Barely. They now moved like shadows through the dead halls of the Union dreadnought, hunted by drones that operated on emergency backups. With the war brain gone, the ship's systems were fractured, unpredictable. Lights flickered, floors shifted, bulkheads slammed shut without warning. But Kiera didn't stop. They had done the impossible, blinded the Warden. Now came the second step. Bring it down. On the ground, people were still watching the sky, not with fear, but with hope. The resistance knew the moment had come to move from defense to full assault. Colonel Malenkov led one of the largest joint human offensives in modern history. From the ice fields of Siberia to the deserts of Australia, hidden launch silos powered up. The humans had salvaged enough alien technology over the years to construct their own hybrid weapons. Missiles with gravity disruptors, railguns charged by mini fusion cores, and even portable EMP launchers. "We hit them now," Malenkov said in a global broadcast, "or we wait for them to hit us again. Choose." The world chose. Across the globe, resistance teams launched simultaneous attacks on remaining Union outposts. Explosions lit the skies. Communication towers were destroyed. Fuel depots vanished in white-hot fireballs. The Union had underestimated Earth's capacity to adapt, to improvise, to strike from the dirt and shadows. No more. The planet was waking up like a wounded animal, and it was angry. But the Union wasn't finished yet. Admiral Raxor had activated Protocol HFY, a last resort directive designed to punish insubordination at a planetary scale. From the depths of Union space, a fleet was mobilizing. 10 capital ships, dozens of support cruisers, thousands of fighters, all headed to Earth with one purpose: erase it. Zorath watched from afar, silent. He had once believed the Union brought order, but now, watching the humans fight with nothing but grit and broken tech, he felt something shift. Maybe the Union wasn't order. Maybe it was just control, dressed in the language of peace. He didn't speak out loud, but he didn't report what he knew either. In that silence, a seed of rebellion took root. Inside the Oblivion Warden, Kiera's team finally reached the engine control nexus. It was a cathedral of light and steel. Multiple story-high reactor cores pulsed with raw energy. The ship had 3 main engines. Kiera needed only one to overload. But the ship wasn't giving up easily. 2 massive Union security droids, automated enforcers still active under fail-safe protocols, stood in their way. Built like walking tanks, armed with plasma cannons and deflector shields, they were more fortress than machine. "Fall back," one of her fighters asked. Kiera shook her head. "No, we didn't come all this way to run." The fight was brutal. Her team moved like ghosts, striking from above and behind, using magnetic grenades, shock traps, and EMP bursts. One by one, her people were injured. One was lost. But in the end, the machines fell, crashing into the deck like defeated gods. Bloodied and breathing hard, Kiera limped to the reactor console. She stared into the light and whispered, "Let's burn it down." At the same time, Ayana and Maria were coordinating Earth's defenses. News of the incoming fleet spread quickly, but so did the determination. "We may not have ships like theirs," Maria said into the emergency broadcast line, "but we have something they'll never understand. We have nothing left to lose." Civilian engineers scrambled to finish the last of Earth's orbital cannons. Hackers began corrupting Union satellite feeds. Children ran water and food to frontline bunkers. Every village, town, and city was bracing for war. And then, something unexpected happened. A message came through resistance channels, from orbit. A fleet, not Union, but alien. Small, fast ships. A species once silent under Union rule had seen Earth's rebellion and made a choice. "We come not to conquer, but to stand beside you." The broadcast ended with a single phrase in perfect human English. "You woke us up." Then it began. Kara triggered the overload. The Oblivion Warden's core screamed with energy. Lights blew out. Metal warped. The ship began tearing itself apart from the inside. Kara and the survivors raced for the emergency dropships. From the surface, people watched the sky and saw the impossible. The Union's greatest weapon was falling, burning, crashing. Oblivion Warden hit the atmosphere like a meteor, breaking apart in a storm of fire and twisted steel. When it struck the ocean, the earth shook. A wall of water rose, but coastal shields, reactivated just in time, held strong. The monster was dead. But Earth wasn't safe yet. The Union fleet was only hours away. The Resistance had won a massive battle, but the war's final chapter had just begun. And now the question wasn't if they could survive. It was whether the fire they lit on Earth would spread across the stars, whether other enslaved worlds would rise, whether vengeance, once a whisper, would become a scream loud enough to shake the galaxy. And in the silence before the final war, humanity stood tall, with eyes burning like suns. The stars above Earth were no longer silent. They shimmered with movement, a dance of ships from every corner of known space, some massive and cruel, others sleek and fast, all racing toward one little blue planet that had defied the impossible. The Union fleet was coming. 10 capital ships, dozens of destroyers, thousands of drones and bombers, a force so vast that it blotted out constellations as it surged forward. Admiral Raxer stood at the heart of the armada, inside the throne room bridge of the Judgment Pyre, his command vessel. Unlike the Oblivion Warden, which was built to intimidate, the Pyre was built to annihilate. No survivors, no warnings, just fire. His orders were clear: erase Earth, crush its spirit, make an example so terrifying that no other species would ever consider rebellion again. But Earth wasn't alone anymore. They came in ones and twos at first, alien vessels not marked by Union banners, small scout ships, then corvettes, then full squadrons. By the time Earth's moon rotated fully, over 100 ships had entered the outer orbit, all flying the same new banner. It was not the flag of Earth. It was not the flag of the Union. It was a symbol freshly born in fire, a jagged star inside a broken chain. Freedom. These were not warriors from great empires. They were outcasts, escaped slaves, former soldiers, refugees, scavengers, entire species the Union had beaten into silence for centuries, all watching Earth and realizing, if humans could make the stars bleed, so could they. Ayanna stood atop the Resistance Skispire, Earth's new global command hub, her eyes locked on the battle map forming above her. The ship's signals lit the screen like fireflies. "How many allies now?" she asked. Maria replied, barely daring to believe the words coming out of her mouth. 212 ships, and more arriving. Ayanna smiled grimly. "Then we make our stand." The Union fleet hit hard. The first wave shattered 3 orbital defense rings. Dozens of Earth's hybrid fighters were vaporized in the opening barrage. The air above the planet became a graveyard of metal and flame. But the humans didn't fall back. They advanced. Using guerrilla tactics in space, they baited Union cruisers into asteroid fields. Pirate captains from the Andril system emerged from hyperspace behind enemy lines. Former Union engineers, now rebels, fed corrupted data into the fleet's navigation AI, causing two dreadnoughts to ram each other during formation shift. And then the sky screamed. The final wave of human-designed vessels, the Wraith Wings, cloaked and made of salvaged Union tech, decloaked directly above the Judgment Pyre. Kira was among them, alive, hardened, and ready. Inside the pyre, Raxer watched as chaos spread. He refused to believe this could happen. "We are order," he bellowed to his crew. "We are gods among insects." But his voice couldn't stop the fire now. The Wraith Wings moved like ghosts, piercing through hulls, disabling power nodes, warping enemy drones with magnetic pulses. Kira's squad punched a hole through the pyre's lower decks and infiltrated the core command. While outside, Earth's forces pushed the Union fleet back, meter by brutal meter. Raxer's throne room became a battlefield. He was not ready for Kira. Her armor cracked, her eyes tired, but her soul unshaken. "You think we're insects," she growled, facing him in the ruins of his command bridge. Raxer raised his plasma blade. "You were meant to be ruled." She looked around at the sparks, the smoke, the collapse, and said, "Maybe we were, but we chose something else." Their battle was short, brutal, final. When the smoke cleared, Raxer lay motionless, and Kira stood tall. Across the battlefield, the signal went out. "The pirate is down. The admiral is dead." In that moment, the Union fleet hesitated, and that hesitation became defeat. Their command broken, their fear rising, and the rebels closing in from every angle, the Union ships began to scatter. Some were destroyed, others fled. A few simply surrendered, confused by the collapse of what was once thought eternal. But Earth did not chase them. They let them run, because Earth had already won, not just a war, but a future. Weeks later, the ashes cooled. Cities began to rebuild. Sky towers rose from shattered foundations. Flags were stitched by hand in the ruins of homes. Kira walked through the grass of what used to be a Union compound. Children played nearby. One of them ran up to her and asked, "Did we really win?" She knelt, placed a hand on the child's shoulder, and smiled. "No," she said, "we chose to stop losing." Across the stars, the shockwave of Earth's victory spread. In hidden moons and dark mines, prisoners whispered. In slave ships, workers stopped and stared at the stars. And in the heart of every free soul across the galaxy, something new began to rise. Not just hope, but fury. And it all began when humanity finally broke. Because when they did, vengeance stopped being a feeling and became a force of nature.